Fellow nationals, residents and friends, today we celebrate 27 years as an independent nation. We are, thank God, a thriving and stable democracy. Unlike many nations across the face of the earth, we have no political prisoners. We have freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Here in our federation, there is freedom of movement and freedom of association. Despite our size, we are ranked among the middle-income nations of the world. And every 5 years, all of us, regardless of political persuasion, together decide into whose hands we will place the management of the state. On the eve of our independence celebrations, I had occasions to reflect on the path we have trod and the current challenges we are facing, being impacted, of course, by the global financial and economic crisis. But at the same time, I envision the opportunities that are being presented through strategic planning with the unfolding of the construction phase of the social security Beacon Heights mixed development at Olives and Dewars, the Coast-to-Coast Developments project at the Southeast Peninsula, the expansion of the offshore education services sector at institutions like the Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine, University of Medicine and Health Sciences at West Farms, and the Windsor University School of Medicine at Brightons, and diversification of these services to accommodate new investments in computer software technology and the broadband telecommunications industry. It is very easy to take these socio-political and economic accomplishments for granted, but really, we shouldn't. Together, we have built a good and stable nation. And when we consider the tumult and travail besetting much of the world for all of our accomplishments here, we should all be both grateful and proud. The theme for this year's independence celebrations is, I quote, "Strengthening families for positive nation building," end of quote. And as you reflect on the meaning and implications of this theme, I would like you to see all that I say, not just as an Independence Day address, but instead as an urgent call to action. What, after all, I ask, is the ocean but countless drops of water? What is the most magnificent structure but the countless bricks or blocks or planks of wood brought together to create something huge and grand and worthy of admiration? Similarly, fellow citizens, residents, and friends, what is a nation but countless families living in a particular geographical space? And it is the feel and nature of each individual family combined with the feel and nature of all other families, from one village to the next, and from one town to the other, that determines the overall feel, the overall nature, the overall character of a society as a whole. What would happen, I ask you, if the individual drops of water in the ocean evaporated or became contaminated? What would happen if the individual bricks or blocks or planks of wood from which a magnificent structure was built proved to be unsound? What happens, therefore, to a nation in which families have no clearly defined rules, no expressions of love and support, no insistence on decency and responsibility, no emphasis on perseverance and self-restraint? Even more importantly, I ask you, what happens in those nations in which families do function within a system of rules and responsibilities, sacrifice and perseverance, decency and self-restraint, and which, of course, of those two types of countries do we here in St. Kitts and Nevis want to be, as we look not only at the present, but also 5, 10, 15 years into the future. But more to the point, fellow citizens, which country will we be? In every workplace, in every social gathering, in every house of worship, indeed in every nation, there are those who make things better. There are those who leave things unchanged. And there are those who make things worse. For our own peace of mind and for the good of the nation in which we all live, we must, each and every one of us, recognize the importance of our being amongst those who are making our country better. And what is the best way for us to be counted amongst those who are indeed making St. Kitts and Nevis better? Do we do this simply by being wealthy? No. Do we do this simply as a result of our political prominence? Of course no. Will we be regarded in this way simply because of our physical beauty or fine clothes? Again, no. A very important way of doing this is by doing our very best to ensure that those over whom we have control and those over whom we have influence, our parents, our children, our cousins and nieces, uncles and aunts, our friends, recognize decency, courtesy, good manners, respect for others, and self-respect for self as their first obligation to themselves and their first obligation to the society in which they live. And this demands that we, as individuals, ready ourselves, that we ready our hearts and our own minds to be the change we want in the world, as Mahatma Gandhi urged us all to do. Confucius, the ancient thinker, said, and I quote, "To put the world right and in order, we must first put the nation in order. To put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. And to put the family in order, we must first set our hearts right." End of quote. Let us then, fellow citizens, as we begin our 28th year as a nation, focus not so much on all that we think is going wrong around us. Let us focus first on setting our hearts right, because it is in this quiet act of self-assessment and in this private moment of personal commitment, replicated in thousands of homes all across this federation, that we as a people will find the psychic, emotional, and spiritual energy to strengthen our families, strengthen our neighborhoods, and as a result, strengthen and uplift our proud nation. It was George Bernard Shaw, thinker, writer, and co-founder of the London School of Economics, who reminded us that, and I quote, "Perhaps the greatest social service that can be rendered to any nation by anybody is to properly bring up their family." End of quote. Whether one is a widow or a widower, a single parent or a divorcee, rich or poor, therefore, none of those titles really matter. What matters is that we fulfill, and fulfill abundantly, not through the provision of material possessions, but through the investment of time, the investment of guidance, discipline, encouragement, and moral teachings, the role of mother, father, and grandmother, and grandfather too,